So, how are we doing today, guys? I hope everybody is having a great day. And what I want to talk to you about today is there is a new Arcane Mage opener. There have been some improvements in the APL that show that it's actually a damage increase to do the opener different than it has ever been done before, actually. I think that it's pretty interesting, and I'm excited to get to this and kind of show you guys how you do the new opener now. And I want to mention that the AoE opener does stay the same. And I will direct you, I'll put a link down there to my Arcane Mage guide for 9.0, so you can see that if you're interested in the AoE, but this will be solely for single target right in this guide. So with all that said, let's get into it. So what I'd like to do here is I want to first off refer you guys to Paleriders guide on Altered Time website, right? And this outlines very well the 3 arcane openers that you could possibly be using, and I will go over at least 2 of them in this video, and then the other one I actually went over in my Arcane Mage guide, which again I will link down below, and I referenced that for the AoE part of the rotation. So you're going to open with a pre-cast Arcane Blast on pre-pull, right? Then you're going to Arcane Orb, then you're going to Arcane Blast again, and at that point you will have 4 Arcane Charges. You will then cast Rune of Power and essentially burn your mana down to either like 40% or so, or until you get 3 clear casting stacks, or until your Rune of Power is done. And then right as your Rune of Power is about to be done, you're going to want to Arcane Barrage, and that will clear your stacks. You will then Touch of the Magi once you're done with that portion, and you will enter your Arcane Power phase. You will immediately want to consume all of your clear casting stacks, right? Then you will go into Arcane Blast spam. And as always, if you have Arcane Echo talented, make sure to use Arcane Missiles instead of Arcane Blast in your Touch of the Magi burn phases. Where do we use Presence of Mind? This is a little weird because you would think you would use Presence of Mind during Touch of the Magi to get some extra damage in, but you actually don't. You want to use it right at the end of your Rune of Power, and right so you can get one more Arcane Blast in. So you'll continue casting Arcane Blast, right, until your Rune of Power is almost over, and then you cast Presence of Mind and get one last Arcane Blast in, and then you finish off your Arcane Power with Arcane Blasts. Also, one more small thing to note is you should be using your mana gem in the opening sequence whenever you have your first Rune of Power down, and this just gives you a little bit more mana to burn in order to fish for some more CC procs. Once Arcane Power is over, or once you are out of mana, you'll want to Evocate, and then Shifting Power if you are a Night Fae. You will then enter your Conserve phase, and then essentially for the rest of this, it just follows the outline that I did in my other Arcane guide. Sorry to reference it so much, but it's rather simple, and you will go between these big bursts and these mini burns. But the opener is now new, and this is what you will have to learn in place of the opener that I showed. And just to reiterate, the reason that we are doing this new opener is because it actually ends up being a damage gain to fish for clear casting stacks, and this is the most efficient way to fish for clear casting stacks prior to an Arcane Power. And essentially what this allows us to do is we're burning a bunch of mana before we actually do the Arcane Power phase, and burning mana generates clear casting stacks. So generally I found that I'll have at least 1 or 2 stacks of, 2 to 3 stacks of clear casting coming into this opening Arcane Power phase. The other opener that I'm going to show you, right, is if you have Temporal Warp or Siphon Storm. This is going to be what you would like to do if you have either of those legendaries, and currently Temporal Warp is looking very, very good for Arcane single target. What you're going to do here is very similar, very, very similar to the previous opener I just showed you. You're going to start with Arcane Blast, then Arcane Orb, and then Arcane Blast again. You're going to have 4 charges at that point. Then you're going to put your Rune of Power down and use Arcane Blast to burn all of your mana this time. Like, all of your mana. And then if your Rune of Power is still up, you're going to want to Arcane Barrage. Like, once you hit 0 mana, you're going to want to Arcane Barrage, because you will burn through all of it with the amount of haste you have. And if your Rune of Power is still up at the end of your mana burn, you're going to want to Arcane Barrage. Then, at that point, you're going to cast Evocate, right? You're going to cast Evocation, and then you're going to cast Shifting Power, assuming you're a Night Fae. This is all assuming you're a Night Fae. Then, after you're done with your Shifting Power channel, you're going to cast Touch of the Magi, enter Arcane Power, use those clear casting procs that you have, and then you're going to consume your Arcane Blast and Presence of Mind charges, right? And you're just going to keep Arcane Blasting after that, and use Arcane Missiles on your casting procs. So very similar to that first opener, except now you're actually going to evocate as soon as you're done with like your first mini burn, right? As soon as you're done with that first Rune of Power and before the Arcane Power, you're going to evocate and Shifting Power. That is really the only difference here. Whereas in the regular opener, you would put that Rune of Power down, do that mini burn, fish for clear casting procs, then go into your big burn with Arcane Power, and then you're going to evocate and Shifting Power. And the reason that you're changing this rotation is because you have so much haste from Temporal Warp that you're going to be able to burn through your mana very, very fast. And then if you have Siphon Storm, you're going to want to cast Evocate before you do your big burn because it gives you Intellect. Now, assuming you're running Arcane Echo, this is it's still a small damage increase, but if you're running Resonance, this is actually about damage neutral. So you'll definitely want to do this if you're doing Arcane Echo, and I would even suggest doing it if you're running Resonance, and these are talents, of course, if you're not familiar. But I would even suggest running it and doing this rotation even if you have Resonance, because even if it's damage neutral, at least you're getting in like the muscle memory of doing this whenever you're doing pure single target and you take Arcane Echo. And you can see by these sims right here that whenever I do the new updated rotation, I get about 50, let's say, okay, about 50 more DPS, which isn't anything massive, but that does compound whenever you get, more and more borrowed power. This does compound and become more and more of a difference as your character gets more stats and gets, the Time Warp legendary, Temporal Warp, which a lot of players are going to be taking, especially Arcane Mages, for instance. But yeah, I mean, I think that generally this is a pretty cool, innovation for the Arcane Mage rotation. I'm pretty happy about it. And I'd like to hear what you guys think about it as well. So make sure to let me know that in the comments. And if you have any questions, make sure to stop by my Twitch stream. I try to stream, at least a couple times a week. On weekdays, it'll be around 5 o'clock or so. And on weekends, it'll probably be around 2, maybe 2-ish. And this is all Eastern time for you. But thanks for watching the video. I appreciate it a lot, guys. And I will see you next time.